Hello and welcome to this episode of Shatterdice Reviews, and today's board game review is Risk Shadow Forces. In my review of Risk Europe, I talked about how I have long searched for the perfect Risk variant, and while Risk Europe is a great game, it is so different to the original Risk that I don't feel right naming it my favourite variant. So let's see if Risk Shadow Forces can step up and prove itself. Risk Shadow Forces takes the game of Risk into a dystopian future where the nations of the world have been replaced by the remnants of the old world. Now, the factions you play as range from a militarised megacorporation to an army of survivalists living on the land. And leading these armies are ruthless mercenaries represented by these 28mm miniatures. We will be looking at these a bit later. The first thing to know about Risk Shadow Forces is it is a legacy game. After 15 games, you will complete the campaign and have a board game covered with stickers that makes it unique to your gaming group. Over the course of the games, players will add various stickers to the board called scars. These scars do a variety of things, providing bonuses or penalties to the troops in that territory. There are also these 2 devastation stickers added to the board before your first game, which mark 2 territories as completely destroyed. No troops can move in or through these parts of the board. Other than this, the game is largely the same as a standard Risk game when it comes to capturing territories, at least so far as the classic dice comparison formula goes. On your turn, declare an attack on an enemy-held territory with 1 to 3 armies. The defender picks to defend with 1 or 2 armies. Then each roll your dice and compare. Highest numbers win. Simple, basic, the classic Risk combat. But here is where the differences come in. Each faction and leader has their own special abilities. Before the first game, players will pick the faction they want to play and then apply a sticker to the faction board in the top space. Each faction has 2 abilities to pick from, but choose carefully, as the ability not chosen is torn up and thrown in the bin, removing it from the game forever. These abilities vary greatly, such as this one, allowing a drone strike to potentially take out enemies before you begin your attack, or this one, allowing you to siphon energy off from another player. What's energy, you ask? Shadow Forces introduces a new resource to Risk in the form of energy. A player's energy total is recorded on this track along the bottom of the board and has 2 main functions. First, it can be used to activate special abilities from your mercenary deck or warfare cards. Secondly, if you have 20 energy, you can spend it for 1 of these domination tokens. Get 4 domination tokens and you win the game. Energy is collected in the same way as troops. The more territories you hold, the more energy you get. So let's take a look at those mercenary characters. These are powerful pieces that serve as kind of a general to your armies. In game terms, they allow you to reroll 1s during battles that take place in a territory they occupy. More importantly though, they will give you access to this deck of mercenary cards. These cards have special abilities on them you can pay energy to use. As the campaign progresses, you will also get to apply new abilities to these cards, making each mercenary unique to that player. Mercenaries are also used in skirmish games. We will cover what those are shortly. First, let's take a look at warfare cards. Warfare cards are laid out in a track across the top of the game board, and when a player successfully takes 1 or more territories on their turn, they may claim 1 of these cards, just like territory cards in a standard game of Risk. The difference here is that these warfare cards have more abilities on them. You can activate using energy or other powers that require you to do something in the game, such as this rescue mission that when completed will reward you with some more troops to add to your forces. After a player takes 1 of these cards, they will flip the next one in the stack. This way there should always be 5 of these warfare cards available. One more point about these: if you flip 1 of these cards and it has 1 of these red boxes on it, then an event is triggered, and the player who flipped the card reads out and resolves the text in the red box. That's really about it for the global games without getting into spoilers, but I mentioned earlier that mercenaries take part in skirmish missions. This is something completely new to Risk, and some of the games in the campaign are special skirmish games that take place on this special skirmish board. Skirmish games zoom in to critical points of a conflict and focus on your mercenaries and their Special Forces squad. This is Risk taking a small step into the arena of tactical miniatures games, and the results are okay. It's nothing special, but does give a nice break in the campaign, allowing players to play something smaller and quicker. A skirmish game involves using your mercenary figure and some allies represented by these tokens. The mercenary's card gives you a table of stats that tell you what dice result you will need to get in melee combat, ranged combat, and also to defend against enemy attacks. Each leader also has a movement and health characteristic listed here, and finally, each also has a special ability. This section also gives you the to hit and defend values for their accompanying squad members. So how does this work? The campaign book will tell you how to set up these two skirmish boards and which mercenary gets first turn. The first player will choose one of the available setup points on the board, as listed in the mission brief. Once all players are set up, the first player will take their turn. This is very simple. On your turn, you can move a number of squares up to your mercenary's movement value and perform an attack. If you are adjacent to an enemy, the attack must be melee, otherwise it must be ranged. Roll the number of dice for your attack, as indicated here. For each dice result that meets or exceeds this target number, you score 1 hit. The defending player rolls their indicated number of defense dice, and for each result that meets or exceeds the value listed here, they block 1 of the attacker's hits. Once this is done, apply damage for each unblocked hit. That's about as complex as it gets. The only other thing is these orange areas block line of sight. To perform a ranged attack, you will need line of sight, determined by using this measuring token. Each square on the board has one of these dots at its centre. Line the token up so it touches both the attacker's dot and the target dot. If any part of the measuring token passes through some of this orange artwork, line of sight is blocked and you cannot shoot. Skirmishes aren't just shootouts though. You will have some mission objective, such as rescuing hostages, to achieve. Well, that's about it for the gameplay. Now let's take a look at the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good. First and foremost is the mercenaries and their decks of tactics. Not only is it cool to have a miniature on the board acting as leader to one of your armies, but that reroll one's ability really comes in handy. Also, being able to upgrade your leader's tactics deck and their attributes for use in skirmish games really lets you build this mercenary the way you want over the course of the campaign. This is a big win for both making the campaign feel more thematic and engaging, but also just for making gameplay more interesting in general. Energy is also a well-implemented resource mechanic. You usually have enough that it becomes a tough decision to either save it and buy a domination token or spend it to activate some useful ability. The domination tokens are also a nice touch, giving a simple method to achieve victory. This makes games faster and gets rid of the tedious back and forth of taking territories. The campaign itself is also good, telling a story that helps keep you invested, while you see the game world grow and change from those legacy stickers. The bad. It's largely the same trappings as classic Risk here. The game can often see the lead player bullied into absolute oblivion, which you will never get rid of from this kind of game. But it is also depressing when you are in no position to recover and are just wanting the game to end. Thankfully, the domination tokens make games of Risk Shadow Forces much shorter. That's about it. If you like the Risk formula, Shadow Forces only improves on the original game. The ugly. The skirmish games. These aren't bad at all. In fact, they make a nice addition, but they're a very simple game of this type and make for a nice detour from global games. But while you might enjoy playing one-off global games after completing the campaign, it is unlikely you will be chomping at the bit to play a skirmish. The legacy aspect is also a bit of an ugly one. It does its job well enough, but many of the locked components of the game are unveiled after completing specific campaign missions. This removes any player impetus to achieve certain goals like in most legacy games. After you complete your campaign, you may have stickers in different places, but your game will be largely the same as any other completed campaign of Risk Shadow Forces. Overall, the game is pretty good, but with a 15-session campaign, it does outstay its welcome. If you have a dedicated Risk group and love Risk and legacy games, then this one might be for you. If not, then perhaps give it a miss.
Well, I'm bored of reviewing this game now. If you like these reviews, feel free to like and share and subscribe to the channel. Bye.